Did you see children? Were they in a separate area, or do you see them on the streets? Did you meet any children you knew in life? The interesting thing is children are abundant on the astral level, just as they are here, because children die. Some babies die when they're young, and they carry on living on the astral level. They grow up, they go to schools, they have parents, they have people, really loving parents who never had the joy to be parents on this level. And there are play schools, and I came across children like I do come across children on this level, and they can be just as mischievous as they are here, and just as free-spirited, and as they are here. So there's very little difference, because children are just free spirits. They are innocent, and they get all the potential, all the power, all the opportunities to grow on the astral level to a much greater extent than we can here. I have quite a few records of children which I haven't actually inserted into a narrative format, but some of the reports I gathered, they need a lot more thought about it, because there were some complicated things with children who lost their lives through trauma. I didn't want to go to that until I'm absolutely clear how these things are resolved, so I didn't include these in my book. But generally speaking, children who end up on the next level, they are really, really well looked after, and they have got all the opportunities which they may never have had on the other level. When you think about what happens to some children, it can be very traumatic, and so we can rest assured that children are in very good hands, really. Yes. The next question: what do people do for recreation? Sports? Do they visit places on Earth that they were unable to visit while alive? I can only talk from experience, and one of the experiences I had when I was out of body, I ended up on an astral level on a big field, and I was hit in the head by a ball. That was how I started having the experience, and the person who thrown the ball gave me to understand that I'm in the middle of their game, a ball game, and that I should get out of the way. It was more in a sort of humorous way, but also I then went out of the field and I observed their play, their ball game. Now, the first thing I noticed is the way they use their balls is using their minds. And their minds are incredibly fast. Everything is speeded up. Our thinking on the astral level becomes much more on a higher vibrational level. We think faster. We react faster. Everything seems to be happening at an increased speed, as well as on a matching the frequency it is on. There's another observation which I haven't really heard mediums talking about very much, but when you experience it, you can see that everything is at a higher pace. People live, on a higher energy level, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. I even found that it took a lot of adjustment, and in some circumstances I felt I was out of place and I needed to leave the place where people were engaged in some activities which which would be the equivalent of here, like some pleasure park with helter-skelters, like a Disney World. But there, the Disney World is on on a factor of 10 in terms of entertainment value, which we can only be envious of. People, we're getting close to it, what we can achieve here, but our minds are on a much slower vibrational level. We are much slower down here. Our physical nervous system hampers us to work to our full potential. On the astral level, these barriers are sort of eradicated, and we get into a state which is very difficult to maintain when we are used to the physical level. So I very often try to find a place which is more in keeping with my slow vibratory level, which of course you can do. But in terms of entertainment, sports and recreation, I haven't been hanging around too long to study it, because my special leaning is towards the art. And I have been much more interested in visiting art festivals or art museums, or art, because I'm a trained artist, and visit people, artists, and see and observe how they produce their artwork. I also noticed, and on one of these occasions, that I had an exhibition. Despite the fact that I earn my living as a digital artist, I still, on the astral level, I'm a painter, because I was trained as a fine artist when I went to Hamburg Academy, and I did abstract paintings. And to my great surprise, I had exhibitions, and I recognized each piece of work, and I knew how it came about. And I had a big exhibition, or not just one, several exhibitions. So we do lead double lives, you know. We only lead part of our life here, but our potential we can unfold on the astral level, which we don't always remember when we get back. We may get snippets in our dream life, but whatever our interest is, we can still fully express it, whether it's through games, football or chess or whatever we choose, or art. We can still accommodate these interests of ours on the astral level.
Just one little question that Brenda has asked, which I think is very relevant. Just a short answer. Why is it, she says, I never understood about children. If we incarnate as old souls, why do we have to grow up on the other side? Why don't we just immediately go back to our soul before we incarnated? Any thoughts on that?
I think what I tried to explain before, the reincarnation process, the way I experienced it, is that when we get into a higher state of consciousness, in my book Vistas of Infinity, I described how I saw my past lives. I saw it as, the best metaphor I could find was a tapestry, which in a more accurate way, our whole beingness, encompassing all these multiple lives and experiences, from the very basic to very complex things, and including problems we created. And each aspect of our lives, of ourselves, creates an energy center. And some of these energy centers are past lives, which then branch out into a network of experiences which we gathered around this past life. But there were lots of other things happening. There were interactions with other energy centers, other people, and they interacted with us. And so we are living in a very complex world of energy, which makes the totality of ourselves. And we only become really aware of it when we move beyond the astral level and go into our our pure state of consciousness, then we can see the totality of who we are. And what happens there, when we have got this overview, we can see energy centers which need addressing. And very often, this is where the idea comes from the lords of karma, or what, when people say, yeah, who is organizing this? It's actually, the way I see it, is an autonomous process of a higher intelligence which pulls all the strings together and weaves around a new configuration which results into a new life. And this new life is not what our previous life will have been. It has a totally new configuration. We may just suddenly decide it would be better in this life to become a woman or a man, or have these or those abilities and so on. So these energies work together, and they create our new framework of new experience, where these unresolved issues, these sort of knots which we became cognizant, they can then be experienced and resolved. And so that's how we bring a new life. For example, when in Multidimensional Man, I described my past lives, and some of the past lives I'm not very proud of, and I knew why they were. And even in this life, after I had visited a past life during my out-of-body state, I could see traces of that past life in my existing life, and I thought, oh, that is really not good. I've got to deal with it. I've got to address it. This aspect in my character actually led to this very negative past life. So sometimes when we see our past lives, we become aware of these knots in our unconscious, so we can deal with it. That very often comes about through deep meditation. In deep meditation, we get into these areas where we hit on psychological knots and problems, and sometimes they rise to the surface, and people then go through what they term the dark night of the soul. They suddenly become very depressed. They're dealing with issues which come out of the past, and you think, how can that be? Because I'm meditating. I should be happy and relaxed. No. What we do through meditation, we bring a lot of stuff to the surface, which we will have to face, and deal with.